The massive chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as Admiral Susan Jones stepped forward. The circular room towered above her, with seats rising in tiers where representatives of 17 alien species looked down at her. Light from the 3 suns of Centralis Prime streamed through the crystal dome overhead, but did nothing to warm the cold stares directed at humanity's representative. Susan stood straight in her blue uniform. She knew what was coming. The vote had been unanimous. "The Council has reached its decision," announced High Chancellor Vextier, his gray skin shimmering with bioluminescent patterns that betrayed his excitement. "Humanity is hereby exiled from all Galactic Council territories. You have 30 cycles to remove your presence from our space." Susan kept her face calm, though anger burned inside her. "On what grounds does the Council cast out an entire species?" The question was just for the record. She already knew their excuses. "The evidence is clear," said Vextier, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "Humanity spreads too quickly. You develop technology too rapidly. Your military capabilities have grown beyond acceptable limits." He paused, leaning forward. "You are unpredictable. Dangerous." Around the chamber, other aliens nodded. The spider-like arachnids clicked their mandibles in agreement. The gaseous Volari pulsed with approval inside their containment suits. "We have followed every rule in the Galactic Charter," Susan replied. "We have shared our advances. We have kept peace." "Yet your kind dreams of war," said Ambassador Creel of the Zereth, the oldest race in the Council. His voice was soft, but carried to every corner of the room. "We have studied your history, your entertainment, your games, always fighting, always conquering." Susan wanted to argue, but what could she say? Human history was indeed bloody. And while they had found peace among themselves before reaching the stars, the old stories remained. "The decision is made," Vextier said. "All human settlements must be evacuated. All human ships must retreat beyond the outer rim. Any humans remaining in Council space after 30 cycles will be considered outlaws." The outer rim, a vast empty region of space where few stars burned and fewer planets could support life. It was a death sentence, though one that would take years to execute. "We will comply," Susan said, because there was no choice. Earth's fleet, though growing, was no match for the combined might of the Council races. "But remember this day. Remember that you turned away from cooperation and chose fear instead." She turned and walked out, her boots echoing on the polished floor. Outside the Council building, Alan Wright waited for her. As Earth's chief diplomat, he had argued their case for months, to no avail. "That bad?" he asked, seeing her face. "Exile, 30 cycles to pack up and leave for the outer rim." Alan's shoulders slumped. "We knew it was coming. The vote was just for show." "There's more," Susan said quietly as they walked toward their shuttle. "I spoke with a Tellan aide. The real reason isn't our violent tendencies. It's our adaptability. We've accomplished in 50 years what took most species centuries. They're afraid of us," Alan concluded, terrified. The flight back to Earth took 3 days. 3 days of planning, of sending encrypted messages ahead, of preparing for the greatest challenge humanity had ever faced. When they reached Earth orbit, Susan looked down at the blue planet with new eyes. How strange that the world that had seemed so vast during humanity's long history now felt small and vulnerable. The United Earth government called an emergency session as soon as their shuttle landed. In the Grand Hall of New Geneva, leaders from every nation gathered to hear the news many had already guessed. President Maria Foster opened the session, then yielded the floor to Susan and Alan. As they explained the Council's decision, the room erupted in outrage. "We should fight," shouted General Steve Harris, pounding his fist on the table. "Better to die with honor than starve in the void." "And doom our children?" asked Director Rebecca Clark of the Colonial Authority. "We have 15 colony worlds with millions of people. We can't sacrifice them for pride." The debate raged for hours. Flight or fight, surrender or resistance, death with dignity or life in exile. Finally, Susan stepped forward again. "There's another option," she said. and the room quieted. The Council believes the outer rim is empty, worthless, but they've barely explored it. Their ships can't handle the radiation levels. Their bodies can't adapt to the conditions. But we can. She activated a holographic display showing star charts of the regions beyond Council space. Our deep space probes have found habitable worlds out there, different from what we're used to, but livable. And there are resources, rare minerals, exotic elements not found in Council space. You're suggesting we actually go? President? Foster asked. I'm suggesting we do what humans have always done, Susan replied. Adapt, survive, build. Alan stepped forward to join her. The Council expects us to die out there. Let's show them what humanity does when backed into a corner. The plan took shape over the following days. Earth's factories ran day and night, producing equipment designed for the harsh conditions of the outer rim. Colony ships were retrofitted for the long journey. Military vessels were upgraded with every technology Earth could develop, operating in a legal gray area before the exile took full effect. Across human space, the exodus began. From the luxury resorts of Alpha Centauri to the mining outposts of the Procyon system, humans packed what they could carry and abandoned what they couldn't. Some chose to stay, accepting the life of outlaws rather than leaving the homes they had built. Most, however, joined the great fleet heading for the edge of known space. Susan watched from the bridge of the flagship Freedom as the last human settlement in Council space was evacuated. On the surface of New Eden, demolition charges destroyed what couldn't be taken, not out of spite but to prevent Council races from benefiting from human technology. All ships report ready, Admiral, said her communications officer Gary Nelson. Susan nodded. Send the signal. Jump coordinates to all vessels. It's time to go. As the vast fleet of 5,000 ships prepared to leave Council space, Susan recorded one final message to be broadcast on all frequencies. To the Galactic Council, today you have exiled humanity, believing you have condemned us to extinction. You have not. You have set us free. Beyond your borders, we will build something new. And one day, we will return. The Freedom's engines flared brilliant blue as it led the fleet toward the darkness of the outer rim, toward an uncertain future that somehow, against all odds, felt like hope. 5 years passed since the human exodus from Council space. The planet they named New Terra orbited a red dwarf star in the depths of the outer rim. It was not a gentle world. Radiation levels were higher than Earth normal. The gravity pulled at their bones. The air was breathable but thin, making everyone gasp during their first months until their bodies adapted. Paul Martinez wiped sweat from his forehead as he examined the power core of the main settlement's shield generator. As chief engineer, he had spent countless hours modifying Earth technology to function in this harsh environment. How's it looking? Asked Susan Jones, now governor of New Terra. Age had added lines to her face, but her eyes remained sharp and determined. We're getting better efficiency, Paul said, closing the access panel. The new radiation shielding works. I think we can expand the protected zone by another 2 miles this month. Susan nodded with satisfaction. The initial landing had been rough. 300 people had died in the first winter when life support systems failed during a radiation storm. But they had learned. They had adapted. Now, 5 years later, New Terra's main settlement housed 20,000 people in a sprawling complex of interconnected domes and underground facilities. Fields of genetically modified crops stretched across the northern valley, protected by smaller shield generators. Laura says the new wheat variant is showing promise, Susan said as they walked toward the central dome. Higher protein, more resistant to the soil chemistry. Laura Garcia had transformed from a simple botanist into the settlement's agricultural savior. Her work creating hybrid crops that could thrive in New Terra's alien soil meant the difference between survival and starvation. In the distance, a ship descended through the atmosphere, its hull glowing red from the friction, one of their scout vessels returning. That's the Pathfinder, Paul noted, checking his tablet. They weren't due back for another week. Susan frowned. Early returns usually meant trouble or discovery, sometimes both. They changed direction, heading toward the landing pad. By the time they arrived, the ship had touched down and its crew was disembarking. Captain Greg Miller spotted them and hurried over, his face tight with excitement. "Governor, you need to see this," he said without preamble. He waved to someone still inside the ship. A creature emerged from the Pathfinder's airlock. It stood, on four thin legs with an upper body that rose vertically, supporting two arms that ended in delicate six-fingered hands. Its head was narrow, with large, compound eyes that shimmered with iridescent colors. It wore what appeared to be a simple harness of woven material. "This is Vexillar," Greg said. "He's a Varu." Susan stared in amazement. In 5 years of exploration, they had found simple life forms on various worlds, but never an intelligent alien species. "The Varu live on a planet about 20 light-years from here," Greg explained. "They have a pre-industrial civilization. They've never seen spacecraft before, but they weren't afraid of us. Curious, actually." Vexillar made a series of clicking sounds that the translator on Greg's wrist converted to English. "Your kind is welcome. You are not like the others." "Others?" Susan asked sharply. "You've met other space travelers?" "Long ago," Vexillar replied. "They came, they took, they left. Said we were too primitive for the great gathering of stars." Susan and Paul exchanged glances. The Council. They had been here before. Over the following days, they learned more. The Galactic Council had visited the Varu world centuries ago, deemed them unworthy of membership, and left them to develop on their own. The same story repeated with other species the scout ships encountered in the following months. Kimberly Nelson, a diplomatic officer on the scout ship Horizon, established contact with the Drell, a nomadic species that traveled between 3 habitable planets in their home system. The Drell possessed remarkable energy technology that operated on principles humans had never considered. "They've been abandoned by the Council too," Kimberly reported during a Council meeting. "Apparently they were too aggressive by Council standards. Their crime? They fought back when a Zareth survey team tried to take their resources without permission." News of other civilizations spread rapidly through New Terra. After years of isolation, knowing they weren't alone in the Rim brought new hope. The most significant discovery came 8 months after first contact with the Varu. A team led by Dr. Nathan Ford, an archaeologist, uncovered ruins on a distant moon. The structures were unlike anything built by known species, made of a metal crystal composite that had withstood millions of years of exposure. "We believe they were called the predecessors," Nathan explained to the Leadership Council, showing holographic images of the ruins. "From what we can translate of their records, they were the dominant civilization in the galaxy before the rise of the Council. Maybe even the founders of the First Galactic Alliance." "What happened to them?" Susan asked. Nathan's expression grew grim. "War. A war with the Zareth." The revelation stunned everyone. The Zareth, oldest and most respected of the Council races, had presented themselves as benevolent founders of galactic civilization. But these ruins told a different story. "There's more," Nathan continued. "The predecessors had technology far beyond what the Council currently uses. They were experimenting with faster-than-light communication, matter synthesis, even artificial intelligence that could interface directly with living minds." Why would the Council suppress such advancements? Paul wondered. "Control," Susan said, quietly. "Keep everyone dependent on their technology, their approval, their rules." In the months that followed, human ships made contact with more civilizations in the Rim. Some were primitive, barely having discovered fire. Others had developed unique technologies unlike anything in Council space. All had been judged unworthy of inclusion by the Council's rigid standards. Susan called a meeting of representatives from each human settlement and the alien civilizations willing to send envoys. They gathered in New Terra's newly completed assembly hall, a diverse collection of species united by a common experience: rejection by the galactic community. "We have been cast out," Susan addressed the gathering. "Some of us because we moved too quickly, others because we moved too slowly. Some for being too aggressive, others for being too passive. But the truth is, we were all rejected because we didn't fit the Council's vision of what civilization should be. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. I propose an alliance, Susan continued. Not based on conformity but on cooperation. Not on fear but on exchange. Each of us has something to teach, something to share. The Varu representative clicked excitedly. We offer our knowledge of biological engineering. The Drell contribute our energy systems, hummed their floating envoy through a translator. One by one, representatives offered their unique strengths as the meeting concluded. Laura Garcia approached Susan with a small plant in a container. Its leaves shimmered with a faint, blue bioluminescence. Our first successful hybrid, she explained. Human genetic engineering combined with Varu biological principles. It purifies air twice as efficiently as any earth plant and grows in soil that would kill any natural species. Susan touched one of the leaves gently. A symbol of what we can achieve together. That night, as New Terra's twin moons rose over the settlement, Susan stood on an observation platform and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Council continued as it had for thousands of years, never suspecting that in the darkness beyond their borders, a new power was beginning to grow. 10 years had passed since humanity's exile. What began as a desperate struggle for survival had transformed into something remarkable. The scattered settlements of New Terra had grown into a true city, home to over 100,000 humans. But more impressive was what lay beyond. The Rim Confederation now united 27 different species across 42 star systems. Ships bearing the Confederation emblem, a spiral galaxy with a bright star at its edge, traveled freely between worlds that the Galactic Council had deemed worthless. Susan Jones, now in her 60s with silver hair and deep lines around her eyes, stood before the Confederation Assembly in the grand chamber they had built in New Terra's capital. Representatives of all member species filled the room, from the insect-like Varu to the crystalline Lithovians, who communicated through light patterns rippling across their translucent bodies. 10 years ago, we were castaways, Susan said, her voice carrying through the chamber. Today we stand as partners in the most diverse alliance the galaxy has ever known. The assembly broke into their various forms of applause, humans clapping, Varu clicking their mandibles, Drell humming at high frequencies. After the session, Susan met with the Confederation's Research Council in a laboratory deep beneath the city. There, Paul Martinez, now Director of Technology Integration, demonstrated their latest breakthrough. We call it the Harmony Drive, he explained, activating a holographic display showing a propulsion system unlike any built before. It combines Varu biocircuitry, Drell energy recycling, human manufacturing techniques, and principles we discovered in the predecessor ruins. Dr. Olivia Brown, commander of the Confederation's defense fleet, studied the display with intense interest. How does it compare to Council technology? Twice the speed, Paul said, unable to keep pride from his voice. 3 times the efficiency, and it leaves no detectable subspace signature. This was the true miracle of the Confederation. By combining technologies that had developed in isolation, they created innovations that none could have achieved alone. The Varu, masters of biological engineering but with no concept of metallurgy. The Drell, who had developed incredible energy systems but lacked medical sciences. Each species filled gaps in the other's knowledge, and at the center of it all was humanity, adaptable, innovative, and skilled at synthesis. The first test of the Confederation's new capabilities came sooner than expected. A Council patrol discovered a Confederation mining operation near disputed space. 3 Council warships approached the single Confederation vessel assigned to protect the miners. Commander Olivia Brown stood on the bridge of the defender ship Horizon as the Council vessels surrounded her. Unidentified vessel, came the transmission from the Council flagship. You are operating illegally near Council space. Identify yourself immediately. Olivia nodded to her communications officer. This is Commander Olivia Brown of the Rim Confederation vessel Horizon. We are outside your borders. This territory is unclaimed. There was a pause before the Council ship responded. There is no recognized Rim Confederation. All non-Council activities in this sector are prohibited, Surrender your vessel or be destroyed. Olivia remained calm. We have no hostile intentions. We are simply mining resources in neutral space. You have 30 seconds to power down your systems, the council commander replied. Olivia looked at her weapons officer, Sam Peterson. Activate Defense Protocol 3. When the council ships fired, their energy weapons dissipated harmlessly against shields based on Lithovian crystal technology. The Horizon didn't return fire. Instead, it released a pulse of energy designed by Drell engineers that temporarily disabled the council ship's propulsion systems. We could destroy them, Sam noted. That's not who we are, Olivia replied. She opened a channel to the disabled vessels. Your life support remains functional. Your engines will restart in 6 hours, enough time for us to evacuate our mining operation. We have no desire for conflict, but we will defend our people. The Horizon departed, leaving the council ships floating helplessly. The encounter would have far-reaching consequences. News of a single Confederation ship defeating 3 council vessels spread quickly. Not through official channels, the council suppressed the information, but through traders, smugglers, and the underground networks that existed throughout council space. Dr. Kevin Russell led the Confederation's diplomatic efforts. Operating from the shadows, he established contacts with dissatisfied groups on various council worlds. The Trellans, whose artistic culture was stifled by council regulations. The Mojave, whose requests for technological assistance were repeatedly denied. Even some humans who had chosen to remain in council space as outlaws now served as his agents. The council isn't as unified as it appears, Kevin reported during a secure meeting with Susan and other Confederation leaders. Many member species resent Zareth control. They stay loyal out of fear, not respect. Can we trust them as allies? Asked Elizabeth Ward, Nuterra's security director. Not all, Kevin admitted, but some. Especially those who remember their history before council membership. The most significant breakthrough came from Dr. Nathan Ford's continued research on predecessor artifacts. In a sealed chamber beneath the assembly building, he showed Susan and Paul a device recovered from ruins on the third moon of a gas giant in the Taurus sector. It's a data crystal, Nathan explained, activating the ancient technology. A holographic display appeared, showing star charts and text in the angular script of the predecessors. We've been translating it piece by piece. What we've found changes everything we thought we knew about the council. The crystal contained historical records dating back over 50,000 years. It revealed that the Galactic Council had not been founded by the Zareth as a peaceful alliance. It had been conquered. The original council was called the Stellar Concordat, Nathan explained, pointing to symbols in the display. It was a democratic alliance of 12 species, including the predecessors. The Zareth were late arrivals, initially welcomed as partners. He advanced the display, showing what appeared to be battles. The Zareth turned on them. They orchestrated conflicts between other council races, weakened them, then attacked. The predecessors fought back the hardest, which is why they were completely erased from history. Susan stared at the records, her mind racing. So the council we know today is built on a lie, Nathan finished. The Zareth didn't create galactic civilization. They hijacked it. In the weeks that followed, Susan called secret meetings with representatives from each Confederation species. They debated what to do with this explosive information. Some urged immediate broadcast to all council worlds. Others cautioned restraint, fearing it would lead to war. We aren't ready for open conflict, Olivia warned. Our technology is advancing rapidly, but the council still outnumbers us. Information can be a more powerful weapon than any warship, Kevin countered. With the right approach, we could fracture the council from within. Susan listened to all views before making her decision. We will prepare the truth for distribution, but we won't release it yet. First, we strengthen our position. We expand our network of allies within council space. We continue our technological development. She looked around at the diverse group of leaders who had become not just allies, but friends. 20 years ago, the council thought they were sentencing humanity to a slow death. Instead, they gave us the opportunity to build something better than they could imagine. Now we'll give other species the same choice they denied us: the freedom to join a true alliance of equals. As the meeting ended, Susan walked to the observation deck overlooking New Terra's nighttime cityscape. Lights from thousands of homes, human and alien, glowed against the darkness. In the sky above, ships from a dozen worlds moved through the atmosphere. The Council had meant exile to be their end. Instead, it had become their beginning. 20 years had passed since the exile. The Rim Confederation had grown into a formidable power, spanning hundreds of systems and dozens of species. What began as a collection of outcasts had become a thriving civilization built on cooperation, rather than control. Linda Wilson, daughter of one of the original exiles, now served as president of the Confederation. She had been born on New Terra and knew no other home. To her and the new generation, exile was not a punishment, but a foundation story. She stood in the command center beneath the capital city, surrounded by representatives from 30 different species. The room buzzed with activity as reports came in from across Confederation space. "The Council has increased patrols along our borders," reported Admiral William Davis, who had taken command of the defense fleet after Olivia Brown's retirement. "They've also placed trade restrictions on any world suspected of dealing with us." Linda frowned. "They're getting desperate. Our existence challenges everything they stand for." The Confederation's success had not gone unnoticed. Over the years, more species had joined their alliance, including some who quietly defected from Council space. Their technology, a fusion of diverse approaches, had surpassed Council capabilities in many areas. "We've confirmed reports of unrest on at least 7 Council worlds," said Eric Lee, who had succeeded Kevin Russell as Chief of Intelligence. "The information about the Zareth's true history has spread further than we expected." The Confederation had finally released the predecessor records throughout Council space, using their network of allies and sympathizers. The revelation that the Zareth had conquered rather than founded the original Galactic Alliance had shaken many species' loyalty to the Council. "There's more," Eric continued. "We have credible intelligence that the Council is developing a new weapon, something designed specifically to target our worlds." The room fell silent. Until now, the tension between the Confederation and Council had remained cold, with only minor skirmishes along their borders. "What kind of weapon?" Linda asked. "A planet killer," Eric said grimly, "based on forbidden predecessor technology that the Zareth kept for themselves." The Lithovian representatives' crystalline body flashed with patterns of alarm. The Varu delegates clicked nervously. Even the usually stoic Drell emissary hummed with concern. Admiral Davis leaned forward. "We need to take action before they deploy it." "What are you suggesting?" Linda asked. "War?" "Not war," Davis replied. "Liberation." He activated the central display, showing a holographic map of Council space. "For years we've built connections with dissident groups on dozens of Council worlds. Many species are ready to break away, they just need the opportunity." "Operation Homecoming," Eric said, calling up a detailed plan. "A simultaneous appearance of Confederation ships above 17 Council worlds where we have strong underground support. Not an invasion force, a diplomatic one. We broadcast the truth about the Zareth, offer membership in the Confederation, and provide protection for those who wish to leave the Council." Linda studied the plan carefully. Her parents had been diplomats before the exile, and she had inherited their preference for peaceful solutions. But she also understood that sometimes a show of strength was necessary to avoid greater conflict. "The risk is enormous," she said. "If the Council responds with full military force—" "They won't," Davis assured her. "Their fleet is spread too thin, and many of their ship commanders come from species who have begun to question Zareth rule." After 3 days of intense debate among Confederation leadership, Linda approved the operation. Preparation began immediately. Work that had been happening in secret for years now accelerated. Ships were equipped with the latest hybrid technology. Diplomatic teams trained for various scenarios. The truth about the Zareth was packaged into broadcasts in every council language. The day before the operation was to begin, an urgent message arrived from one of their agents in council space. The council had discovered part of their network. The Zareth leadership had ordered the immediate deployment of the planet killer. Its first target would be New Terra. "Move up the timetable," Linda ordered. "All ships launch immediately." Across Confederation space, hundreds of vessels prepared for emergency departure. On New Terra, evacuation protocols began, though everyone knew a complete evacuation would be impossible in the time available. What no one expected was the message that arrived 6 hours later. It came not from a Confederation agent, but from Captain Frank Peters of the Council cruiser Starbound. He and 5 other vessels had broken from Council command and were moving to intercept the Zareth dreadnought carrying the planet killer. "Not all of us believe the Zareth lies anymore," Peters said in his transmission. "We won't be part of genocide." The rebellion spread faster than anyone could have predicted. As news of the Zareth plan leaked throughout Council space, more ships changed allegiance. Species with ancient grievances against the Zareth saw their opportunity for freedom. Confederation vessels arrived above their target worlds to find many already in open revolt against Council rule. On some planets, the transition was peaceful. On others, Confederation forces had to intervene to protect civilians from loyal Council troops. The final confrontation came near the Arcturian Nebula. The Zareth flagship, carrying the High Council itself and their superweapon, faced a combined fleet of Confederation ships and former Council vessels. Admiral Davis commanded from the Bridge of the Freedom, named after Susan Jones's flagship from 20 years earlier. His tactical display showed over 300 ships surrounding the Zareth dreadnought. "Attention, Zareth vessel," Davis broadcast. "Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. We have no desire for further bloodshed." The response came in the ancient measured tones of High Chancellor Zorax, leader of the Zareth Council. "You cannot undo 50,000 years of order. The lesser species need guidance, control. Without us, there is only chaos." "You mean without you, there is freedom," Davis replied. "The choice is yours. Surrender, or we will be forced to disable your vessel." The Zareth ship fired, its main weapon lancing out toward the Freedom. But the shields, built with combined technology from a dozen species, held firm. Davis gave the order. From the surrounding fleet, precisely targeted energy pulses struck the dreadnought's key systems, not to destroy but to disable. Within minutes, the mighty vessel drifted powerless. Boarding teams from the Confederation secured the ship. The High Council was taken into custody, not for execution, but to stand trial before representatives of the species they had deceived for thousands of years. As reports of victory came in from across former Council space, Linda addressed the United Fleet from New Terra's command center. "Today marks not an ending but a beginning," she said. "The Galactic Council has fallen, but in its place we will build something greater, not an empire ruled by fear, but a union founded on respect for all forms of life, all paths of development, all ways of thinking." The transmission reached every ship, every world that had joined the rebellion. A new chapter in galactic history had begun, written by those who had once been cast out as unworthy. 25 years after humanity's exile, representatives from over 100 species gathered on Earth. The blue planet, once just a distant memory for the exiles, welcomed them back for the historic occasion. In the grand assembly hall built, where the old United Nations once stood, they came to form a new galactic alliance. The Galactic Union, as it would be called, was the culmination of everything that had begun with that fateful exile. The old council structure had been dismantled, completely. In its place would stand something new. Susan Jones, now 80 years old and frail, insisted on attending despite her doctor's concerns. Her hair had turned completely white, and she needed a hover chair to move around, but her mind remained sharp. As the last surviving member of the original exile leadership, her presence carried powerful symbolism. When she entered the assembly hall, every delegate rose in respect. Species that once would have considered humans primitive or dangerous now looked to them as founders of a new era, The irony was not lost on Susan as she was wheeled to her place of honor. Linda Wilson, still serving as president of what had been the Confederation, opened the proceedings. 25 years ago, humanity was judged unworthy of membership in Galactic Society, she began. Today, we gather not to create a new empire, but to build a true union where all voices are heard. The first order of business was dealing with the former council leadership. The Xerath representatives, no longer the dominant power but still included in the proceedings, watched nervously as their former leaders were brought in to face judgment. Hi, Chancellor Zorax, once the most powerful being in the galaxy, now stood humbled before the assembly. The trial had lasted months, with testimony from dozens of species about Xerath manipulation throughout history. For crimes spanning 50,000 years, this assembly sentences the former High Council to exile, announced the Chief Justice, a Trellin whose people had suffered greatly under Xerath rule. Not to a barren region like the Outer Rim, but to a single comfortable world where they will live out their days in peace, cut off from the wider galaxy. It was a merciful punishment, deliberately different from what the Xerath had done to others. As guards led Zorax away, he locked eyes with Susan briefly. She saw something unexpected there, not hatred, but something like understanding. After the sentencing, the real work began. For 3 days, the assembly debated the structure of the new union. Unlike the old council, power would not be concentrated in a single species or a small group. Each member world would have representation, with decisions requiring broad consensus. Technology will be shared, not controlled, said Paul Martinez, now in his 70s, but still passionate about innovation. Scientific advancement benefits, all when it happens in the open. The most surprising moment came on the 4th day of the assembly. A delegation arrived unannounced. Tall, ethereal beings with skin that seemed to shimmer with starlight. They introduced themselves as the predecessors. We were not extinct, explained their leader, who called himself Nexar. When the Xerath defeated us, the survivors retreated to dimensional space, a realm adjacent to our own. We have watched from there for millennia, waiting for the right time to return. The revelation stunned the assembly. The very founders of galactic civilization, thought long dead, had returned to witness the birth of the new union. We offer our knowledge, Nexar said, not to control, but to share. The mistakes of the past need not be repeated. On the final day of the assembly, the Galactic Union Charter was signed. Its core principles were simple but powerful: technological advancement for the benefit of all, cultural autonomy for each species, and mutual defense against external threats. After the ceremony, Susan found herself alone in a quiet corner of the garden outside the assembly hall. Earth's familiar sun warmed her face, a sensation she had missed for 25 years. A young Xerath approached her hesitantly. Unlike the former leaders with their ornate robes and jewelry, he wore the simple clothes of a diplomat in training. "Governor Jones," he said, using her old title with respect. "I am Torlak. I hope I am not disturbing you." Susan gestured for him to join her. "Not at all. And it's just Susan now." Torlak seemed nervous. "I wanted to ask you something that has puzzled many of my people. When you had the power to destroy us as we once tried to destroy you, why did you choose mercy?" Susan looked at the young Xerath thoughtfully. In his features she could see similarities to those who had exiled her people so long ago. Yet he was different, raised in a different world, with different values. "Because the stars are vast, and life is rare," she said finally. "Our greatest strength isn't our ability to fight, but our ability to forgive. That's what the Council never understood about us." Torlak considered her words carefully. "I hope to learn this strength," he said. "You already have the beginning of it," Susan replied. "You're here, asking the question." As evening fell, delegates from 100 worlds gathered on the observation deck of the new Union headquarters. A massive holographic display showed the galaxy, no longer divided into Council and Rim territories but united as one civilization. Children played beneath the display, human children alongside young from dozens of other species. They had been born into a different universe than their parents had known. For them, the diversity of life was not something to fear but to celebrate. Linda found Susan watching the children with a peaceful smile. "Was it worth it?" Linda asked quietly. "All the struggle? The hardship of exile?" Susan nodded slowly. "We lost Earth for 25 years, but we found the galaxy." She pointed to a bright point of light in the holographic display. New Terra, once a harsh frontier world, now a thriving center of culture and learning. "Sometimes," Susan said, "you have to lose your way to find a better path." As night fell, over Earth, ships from 100 worlds hovered in the sky, their lights forming constellations never seen before. The exile that was meant to be humanity's end had instead led to a new beginning, not just for humans, but for all those who had been judged and found wanting by a flawed and fearful power. In the great pattern of stars above, Susan saw not banishment, but possibility, not exile, but return, not an ending, but a future greater than anyone could have imagined.